Within 7 days of Pádraig Pearse standing on the steps of the GPO to proclaim the Irish Republic, Pearse had signed the unconditional surrender of his Easter Rising forces. News of the surrender took 3 hours to reach the leafy Dublin suburb of Sandymount. Sandymount was a hotbed of resistance and has many connections with the Easter Rising. The area was the last bastion of the Irish Republic to surrender, and on May 3rd, a week after the Rising had ended and the executions of its leaders had begun, was martial law lifted in the area. The 1901 census, held by the National Archives, details those dwelling on Sandymount Avenue, including the Pearse family. Pearse lived in Sandymount from 1900 to 1904 while he studied to become a barrister. He lived at number 1 Lisregan Terrace, which is now number 1 Sandymount Avenue, seen here as the first house. Following the formation of the Irish Volunteers in 1913, the Sandymount rebel trained on the grounds of Sandymount Castle, which was owned by the Countess Plunkett, mother of the rebel leader Joseph Plunkett. Training was conducted by Major John McBride, who was one of those executed in the aftermath of the rebellion. Countess Plunkett had used her home to feed and house many of those affected by the 1913 lockout. And then in 1916, its grounds had been used to house rebels, and many of its rebels being attached to Eamon de Valera's 3rd Battalion, which would eventually seize Boland's Mills. The area was under the control of the Pembroke District Council, whose headquarters were located in the town hall in Ballsbridge. Town Clerk Joshua Manley kept a record of the events in the area. This included the shooting of a local ambulance at London Bridge Road that was transporting a casualty to St Patrick Dun's Hospital, with snipers located on the railway bridge in Bath Avenue. 2 days after the surrender, the rebels were still sniping on the British military from the railway line at the rear of the Royal Nurseries on Park Avenue. The snipers were travelling along the railway line seeking out targets and positions, opening fire from Sydney Parade onto the Strand. The British shelled a number of suspected rebel strongholds on Serpentine Avenue. There was a 30-minute firefight on Sunday just after 5 p.m. at the corner of Sandymount Avenue as the rebels seized a house known as Ardgana. The home of suspected rebel Cathal MacDowell was blown up by the army. By Wednesday, the military had the area still seized off, causing hardships and food shortages for those living within the cordon. One of the first rebel fatalities was Sean Connolly, who was shot dead as he launched an attack on Dublin Castle. Connolly had been born in Sandymount in 1883 before his family moved north to the Liffey. Another fatality was at Boland's Mills, where 33-year-old Edward Ennis was killed by enemy fire. He had lived at 5 Drummond Terrace in Sandymount village. Ennis Grove, just off London Bridge Road, is named after him. The contribution of Irishtown and Ringsend is another story to be told. With the massive British attack on the area, a field hospital was set up at Wellesley Park, where the local doctor, Dr. Crawford Smith, administered to the wounded of both sides. One final connection with the Easter Rising is W.B. Yeats, who was born on Sandymount Avenue in 1865. He wrote a poem about the events of 1916, in it which he said, "All changed, utterly changed, a terrible beauty is born." The events of Easter Rising, 1916, and how it affected Sandymount.